I've always been really inspired by history.
Because there's also, or at least there used to be, I think, one track on the record inspired by the brothers Karamazov. Is that still the case? Is that still on?
It's funny, like it's not inspired by Brothers Karamazov, although it is one of my favorite books, although if not my most favorite book I've ever read. But when you're titling music, you have to title it something, because you're writing music and recording it, and literally you have to name the file something. So you're always searching for something, and I usually just name it something I like or something I see down the road. Or so a lot of them, like for this record, a lot of them were these Civil War battlefields, because I was traveling a lot down through the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia, Maryland and Virginia, going down to see my parents in West Virginia where they have a house, and you go right past a number of the big Civil War battlefields. So I just named songs after them, because the names, they're kind of like these mythical places, these very important hallowed ground of where these incredibly important battles took place, like Antietam or something, where so many people lost their lives. So you kind of like, I've always been interested in history, and these things, they take on like some big, when you start thinking about them and visiting these places, it's pretty intense. So when you're writing music, you just need a name, and you're like, oh, I'll just call it that, even though it's not like, there's no direct connection with the lyrics. So the same with Brothers Karamazov. I think I called it Karamazov. That's Runaway. It was just like writing that one day, and I could feel that I had something good. So I was like, better give it a title I like, or something I like. So Karamazov.
So all of the tracks were just named something first and then changed.
All of them, yeah, every single one. And I still, at this point, I still think of them by their first name that they had. It's hard to get used to the new names.
And you say they're from Civil War interest. Are you really like a Civil War buff or something? Is that big interest?
I wouldn't call myself a buff, because there's many, it's all relative. Like there's amazing historians, that are buffs. But I studied history in college, and I've always been really inspired by history, and my brother has also. So we do read quite a bit of history, and I think just as far as like conversationally and things you think about, and we often talk about history, not as a band, but like just in personal life. I'm often, things to talk about. I definitely more than a casual interest in history, and I would say maybe I am a buff on certain things.
What is it that appeals you to the Civil War? What is appealing about it to you?
It's just such a tragic watershed moment for the United States, as far as like eliminating slavery and starting the long process towards, what would culminate more than 100 years later with the Civil Rights movement, or 100 years later. To me, it's such a, when you start to read about it, it's amazing the kind of loss of life, the staggering loss of life in very short periods of time in some of the battles, and these larger than life figures like Lincoln and William Sherman, and Robert E. Lee, and Stonewall Jackson, these kind of like mythical figures that were involved in the war, and it's just, I don't know, maybe it's like a boyhood kind of thing. You just kind of, it's a huge part of our country's history, and I think it becomes more and more relevant, especially now with our country so divided. It's like you start to think about that. Not that there would ever be another Civil War, but there are these really deep divisions, and we don't fight, we don't kill each other anymore, but there's, it's pretty sad the way our country is pretty harshly divided between different people, different camps, that think very different things.